In Hollow Knight, there is a question that is still unanswered.
Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. All right. Let me tell you something.
If the abyss was sealed after the Hollow Knight was chosen, then how did our player character escape it?
Good question! How about I leave you alone with this guy instead?
Now, it is very much possible that Team Cherry would have given us answer to this question in the Abyss DLC. If Hollow Knight had reached $85,000 funding in Kickstarter, then we would have gotten a new expansion called the Abyss DLC. Team Cherry explains it as a massive new expansion for only the hardiest of the adventurers and 4 new bosses. What I am concluding from this statement is that there would probably have been a new platforming section, just like the Path of Pain, and 4 new hard bosses. To further elaborate, in an AMA on Reddit, Team Cherry said that the unfunded Abyss expansion goal would have taken players down into the Lake of Void to explore the twisted space within. When later asked, it was stated that Team Cherry would not be working on the content plan for the Abyss expansion, citing that the world for the game was built without considering this expansion. But one of the funded Kickstarter's stretch goal was addition of 4 quests to the game. One of these quests would have been the lantern on the Black Shore. This was the quest to light the lighthouse in the abyss, and it would also have been included an additional boss encounter, so that means 5 bosses in the abyss. It's not very much of a surprise that the hand of this boss looks very similar to the hands of the collector, which in itself is a void being. From this drawing, we can figure out what the Lantern of the Black Shore quest boss encounter would have looked like. Maybe we were supposed to climb the lantern tower and light the lighthouse, and this void being tries to stop us from doing so, because if we light the lighthouse, then just like what happens in Hollow Knight, the void being would go back to its stable mode into the Lake of Void. Additionally, in the early versions of the game, this bench named Ancient Bench existed in the game files but was later removed. This bench was made out of vessels, and I think it was supposed to be in the Abyss, maybe for the Abyss DLC or an Abyss quest. No one knows except Team Cherry, of course.
And after this point, I just want you to know that this is pure speculation and theory, so that you don't confuse it with the other stuff we have been talking about previously. So yeah, enjoy.
So what my theory is, Abyss DLC would have been like the White Palace, so it is a memory that shows us how the knight managed to escape the abyss. Maybe after we defeat the 4 bosses, they could have helped us in getting out of the abyss somehow, and it is also possible that one of those bosses or all of them were guarding the escape out of the abyss. Maybe just like the dead bug in Howling Peak that gives us access to the Grim Troop DLC, there could have been a dead bug or some other creature that would have given us access to the entirety of the Abyss DLC. And the main plot point of the DLC would have been escaping the abyss. There is also a possibility that we could have gotten more information on the ancient civilization that existed before Hollow Knight and how it worshipped void. It could have been involved in the knight's escape from the abyss. Now imagine this, a whole new city under the abyss. I mean, Team Cherry said a massive new expansions, so I am not overestimating the size of how this expansion would have looked like when I say a new city. So the story could go like this: a city under the abyss where the ancient civilization slowly migrated to when Hollow Knight started to form above them. In this Abyss DLC, the knight gets to explore the city, and I am naming that city Abyssal Depths. Now imagine this, the city was occupied by void beings and vessels that were thrown into the abyss but survived the whole abyss massacre thing. And it is in this city that we find the higher being that created the abyss. And that's how it answers Hollow Knight's biggest question: how would have the knight escaped the abyss if it was locked inside by Pale King?
So this is end of one theory, and here is like another theory that is like an extension of this theory. Please.
But just hear me out, okay? So our player character was just a normal vessel. But in that city, we find the higher being that created the abyss, which is the Shade Lord. I mean, hear me out, okay? Our player character was just a normal vessel, but the God of Abyss, the Shade Lord, decided to take place inside our player character.
Excuse me, what the actual
the massacre that was going on, and which is one of the reason Void killed Pale King. Now, our player character, our knight, is partially a higher being, which is why it can read the tablets and make us. And this is how the Abyss DLC can be connected into the world of Hollow Knight. And that's how it answers Hollow Knight's biggest question. How would have the knight escaped the Abyss if it was locked inside by Pale King?